Hi, you clicked onto today's tropical tidbit from the tundra for Wednesday, and it is still from the tundra because I've moved up to the north to Fairbanks, Alaska to attend college here at UAF, and therefore the name still fits. And I think I've finally found a way now to get some updates going in the mornings again. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to do these every day, necessarily, but we'll see how it goes. I'm trying to fit in with my class schedule, which I'm starting to get down into now. The first real week of classes are this week, so we're starting to get into our schedules, and I'll be trying to do some of these updates through the end of the hurricane season at least. So we'll see how that goes. No promises, but I will be trying. So getting into what's going on this morning, see, not much really going on in the Atlantic right now. We've got kind of a wake of subsidence after a bunch of activity that moved through. We have Hermine up here in Texas that dropped a whole bunch of rain. One of those systems that came right out of the Bay of Campeche and dumped a whole lot of water over here. And this one of those systems that really illustrates how quickly things can go up in the Gulf of Mexico. This has been a very ripe area for development, with the exception of Bonnie and the couple of tropical depressions that formed here. Really, this area has been deceptively favorable for storms if they actually get in here. The depressions that fizzled have been really deceptive in this way. The Gulf of Mexico is a hot zone. If storms get in here, it's not going to be very fun. If a mature hurricane comes out of the Atlantic, ends up in here, it would probably have no problem strengthening. Given the overall pattern, it would tend to be in a favorable environment. Now, we have a brand new tropical storm that skipped depression status over here. This is Igor, right here, centered just southeast of the Cape Verde Islands, and this is one of those names on the list this year that sounded pretty intimidating, and I think this will end up living up to its name. It's going to be coming west or west-northwest across the Atlantic, and this may have a chance to develop a little bit quicker than other storms have, like Danielle and Earl, which took until 50 to 60 west to really get going. This one may have more of a chance. Strengthening will be gradual over the next couple of days, but it's got this out in front of it, this big tropical wave, clearing out a lot of the moisture ahead of this. So this will not be having as much dry air to deal with. There is a new burst coming off of Africa to the north of it, which is typical of a strong wave that's coming off. But with this out in front, I think this won't have as much of a problem with dry air as it comes west, and this could be a hurricane as soon as a few days from now. Looking at the European day 10, active tropics over here. This is Igor that it's showing right here north of the Antilles Islands. We got another storm that comes off behind it, and another storm that comes out of the Caribbean and comes across the Yucatan over here. So this is a very active setup on the European. Now, interesting thing about Igor, you see that he comes west-northwest to the north of the islands, and this is in another position where the models are going to be jumping around on whether this recurves or not. We got a lot actually, that recurve it out into this weakness over here. You can see the broad trough digging into the ridge, and this is either going to try to break through the ridge or come west-northwest towards the United States coast. An interesting thing here is that if a storm really does develop right behind this coming off of Africa and tries to recurve early, it'll be interesting to see if this tries to amplify this trough over here, pump the ridge over here, that would keep this going west. That would be interesting if this was trying to recurve, but kind of hard to tell this far out yet how the pattern will exactly evolve. But you can see the flow's rather flat up here. You could easily see this ridge building in enough to cause this to threaten land over here. So it'd be something to watch, still a long way out, but interesting nonetheless to see three storms on the European. And this one is interesting over here because it would be the first development we have out of the Caribbean since Alex at the very beginning of the year, and the Caribbean's been rather quiet so far. You can see what the European is doing. It builds a bunch of heat, lowers the pressures in here, and then develops something out of it and takes it in the Gulf. And if we look at the GFS MJO forecast here, you can see that the upward motion right now is still over the eastern Atlantic and Africa, where it's been for the last several weeks, which is how we got this burst. We had, I believe, 5 storms in 16 days during August and the beginning of September. So we've had a nice burst, and that's what happens. Most of them Cape Verde storms, when you get the upward motion over Africa, that's what you get. But we're starting to see the GFS try to see the upward motion shifting farther west. When we get out to days 10 and 15, you start seeing there's still green over Africa, but you see green showing up over the Caribbean as well, and that's showing a buildup of heat, lowering of pressures, and a more rising air in this area of the world. And it's about time for this part of the Atlantic to get going. There are some years when the Caribbean is rather quiet, but I think this year the Caribbean is not going to get away without a couple running through, and I think that their time is coming for a ramp up in activity. If you look at the GFS ensemble mean, day 10, these are the 500 millibar anomalies. Blue colors represent below normal heights, and you can see the model is seeing Igor probably right in here coming into the western Atlantic, and you can see that there's room for some other mischief going on down here, and what really drives it home is looking at the precipitation. You can see Igor here, day 10, and look at all the rain falling over the western Caribbean on the ensemble mean. This is a very active pattern tropically, is what the model is seeing here. Lots of buildup of heat, lots of rain falling, and you can see something try to spin up in here similar to the European in about 10 days. So this is something that you folks in the Gulf of Mexico might want to be watching to see if something tries to develop and come out into here in a week and a half or so. Going out to day 15, we see the pattern remains favorable. You got ridging over the top of lower than normal heights, and this is a favorable pattern for this area of the world to start getting active. Haven't had a whole lot in this area yet this season, but this is the kind of pattern that can start setting that up. And now we're here at the peak of the season. This is September 8th. The climatological peak is September 10th. And when we start getting past September into October, this is when the Cape Verde season starts to shut down. Usually after mid-September you stop seeing that kind of a burst. We had our big burst in August, which is typically when the Cape Verde train rolls off the most strongly, and when that starts to shut down, we're going to start increasing the activity over here, because if the Cape Verde season shuts down, we're not just going to shut everything down. What will happen is we've had our season out here, but when this goes away, all it's going to do is shift west, and then this area of the world is going to have to start watching. And this is the concern, that we're going to start getting more land impacts. We've already had several on the United States coastline, and the threat of one of the Cape Verde storms coming across, like Igor or the one behind it or something like that, but the threat becomes even more prominent when the Cape Verde season starts to end for the year, as the waters cool out here and the continents start to cool down, and you start focusing the activity more in here as we start the process in reverse. In the beginning of the season, we start over here, shift east later, and now we're starting the reverse process after the peak, where it's mostly out here, and then we shift back into the southwest Atlantic basin towards the end of the year in October and November. And again, this is a La Nina year where the activity will continue late into the season. That's what it usually tends to do. So we're going to be watching this area of the world to see it start lighting up, as well as for potential threats from the Cape Verde storms. So we'll continue tracking Igor and see if anything else tries to pop up next week. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.